Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, August 2nd. You are watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. Tonight, we continue our series of interviewing candidates for the U.S. Congress, for the House of Representatives in the First Congressional District. And it is my pleasure this evening to interview one of the newest candidates into the race for the First Congressional District, Dave Harden, Democratic candidate for U.S. Congress in the First Congressional District. Dave, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to be here with you.
So thank you for being here, and thank you for not blurting off as soon as I said council instead of Congress. So tell us about yourself. Like I said, you're one of the newest candidates in the race. I'm not sure if you're a person who's run for office. Your name is unfamiliar. Tell the viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself and why you're running.
Well, thank you, Bill, and it's great to be here again. So I grew up in Carroll County on a small farm, and I went to Carroll County Public Schools. I graduated from Westminster High School. I also have extremely deep roots in this district, both on the Eastern Shore and in the northern counties. So my family in Carroll and Baltimore counties go back hundreds and hundreds of years. And on the Eastern Shore, it's the same. Ed Dorsey died off the coast of Kent Island in 1659. That's how far we go back on the Eastern Shore. Lillian Downing, my great-grandmother, grew up in Rock Hall, and she went crabbing and fishing in the bay, and she sold vegetables in Lexington Market, and she made the best crab cakes ever. And to this day, those are the crab cakes that we know and love. But I'm a Maryland boy through and through. It's in my heart. It's in my DNA. And I've been in this district forever. I will say that even though I was a small town farm boy, after college, I wanted to go see the world. And I joined the Peace Corps, and I opened up a school in Southern Africa in Botswana. And based on that, I ended up joining the Foreign Service and representing America on some of the biggest, toughest issues of our generation. And I usually took an economic perspective on the big conflicts. And by doing that, I really learned about forgotten communities that feel left behind and feel aggrieved, and are trying to just provide not only the social services, but the economic opportunities for themselves, for their kids, for the next generation, and for their communities. And so with that, I decided to bring that experience, that talent home, and work with my people, my neighbors, to help bring back and prepare, to help bring back opportunities for the First District and prepare for the economic challenges ahead.
That is terrific. And Dave, this is going to be one of the first of many times that I'm going to name drop your website, which is hardenforcongress.com, which with HARDN for those of you who can't see the Zoom. But I love what you write about your family's long background in Maryland, and it's terrific that you had a successful and very eventful foreign service career, and then have come back to lend your talents to bettering the condition of things in the great state of Maryland. So I personally commend you for all your hard work and for getting into this race. So what are, again, I went to your website, so I don't want to be too much of a spoiler, but what are the main themes of your campaign?
Well, thank you, Bill. And it was an extraordinary honor to represent the bigness of America, the greatness, the vision of America as we went in to solve the most complex problems of our time. And, I likened my job to that of FEMA. Now, FEMA is, is domestically based, but when there's a hurricane or a crisis, FEMA rushes in. Overseas, whether it was war or famine or floods and tsunamis, and when people left, I went in with my team, and we worked to save lives. And I was very much not only honored to represent America, but also honored to respond, to bring the American talent and innovation and ingenuity to crisis. And I think now we have three fundamental crises that I would like to discuss. And so I'm bringing that same kind of philosophy of problem solving and response to challenges home. And here are our three challenges. One, we have a crisis of democracy, and I'm happy to explain that in a little bit more detail. Secondly, we need to prepare now to build that next generation economy. And whether or not you believe in climate change or you think it's a hoax, capital markets and technology solutions are coming our way. Our only choice is whether or not we prepare for the economic disruption and design, build, and sell to the world, or buy from those who do. And the third crisis, I think, is our need to unlock America's talent, the hidden talent that we see, particularly in rural communities. And the First District of Maryland is a rural district. We need to unlock the inherent talent of our people in this district so that they can drive a better and bigger future for not only their families, but for America.
Dave, I would love to allow you to expand on each of these, because as we were talking a little bit in the pre-show, you know, I'm generally I mean, I still am proud of my own history of public service, but you know, you do get the Wayne's World "I'm not worthy" in terms of your background, but I'm sure that you would agree that January the 6th was a sad time and a horrific time for our country, and really outlined that crisis in democracy of which you speak. So, you know, having worked in this and for a much more intense manner than I ever have in public service, I'm really interested in knowing more about how you see this crisis of democracy and how you see ourselves as a nation working our way out of it.
I spent decades representing the core principles of America: democracy, freedom, and I worked all over the world with people who have been left behind and forgotten. And our answer was always our foundation of democracy. It's what made us great. It unleashed our economic power. It helped spur our innovation and technology leads, and it created the America that we know today in the post-World War II era. But on January 6th, that attack changed everything. And my son, who is an officer, a junior officer in the Air Force, was based in the Middle East. And he called me that day and he said, "Dad, I can't defend America right now because we look like we're in civil war." His job on that day was to keep eyes on ISIS and the Taliban and Russia and Iran. He was at the forefront of protecting America from the adversaries abroad. And yet our member of Congress, Andy Harris, he fueled that attack. He fueled that insurrection by denying the Electoral College outcomes, particularly in Pennsylvania and Arizona, by carrying a gun into Congress, by getting in a fight at that night in Congress. I mean, America was on edge. And what did he do? He accelerated the risks and the tensions that day. But I'm going to tell you something else that he did. Not only did he fail to honor the Capitol Police that were protecting the citadel of our democracy and his life, but he also refused to sign and pass the Defense Authorization Act, which pays our Maryland sons and daughters in the military serving abroad, pays their salaries. So what Andy Harris did to all of us is fueled an insurrection, put our country at risk at home and abroad, and then failed to pay the defenders of our great nation. And I was outraged. and Andy Harris needs to be held accountable, and I intend to do that.
That's an out. Thank you for that answer. And my only wish of Congressman Harris that night of when he picked a fight with the former NFL player from Texas would have been maybe that, you know, the congressman from Texas would have had one more sack in his career total right there on the floor of the House. You know, you make some really great points about the economy, and you know, the first district has generally been known as an agricultural economy, the poultry industry being very heavy, farming, you know, various forms of agriculture. How do you see the challenges that are emerging on the Eastern Shore, as there are certain areas of the Eastern Shore that are starting to grow, and you know, and as congressman, what would you do to make sure that the Eastern Shore's economy, you know, keeps pace with the times?
Well, thank you. And I want to give a nod to the farmers. I kid you not when I say I delayed my launch because I wanted the steers to be in my launch video. And because of COVID, it took us a little bit longer to get the steers this year than normal. And I may be one of the few members of Congress, or one of the few candidates that actually is delayed because we were in fact waiting for the steers. And so I care about this. The reality is, climate change is having big impact on the Eastern Shore and all of Maryland. But I'll give you a concrete example. Dorchester County is the fourth largest county by land mass in the whole state. In a few decades, it will be the 14th largest county, simply as a result of land loss. Of course, we see superstorms and the risks that brings. We see greater salinity in our agricultural space. Changes are coming to our economy, and it will affect agriculture, infrastructure, energy supply and resources, transportation. Everything is going to change. And we can be afraid of that, or we can embrace that. We can seize these opportunities, or we can fail. Now, here's the interesting thing about having a long history in the state of Maryland. We got it wrong in the late 70s and the early 80s with understanding the global trends that helped collapse the steel industry. Baltimore was a big, thriving city for almost our entire history. We were champions of commerce and trade. My grandfather built the Liberty ships and Bethlehem Steel in Baltimore City. And when he did that, he represented the bigness, the greatness of American power, both its economic, military, and political strength. We made the ships that plied the oceans of the world. And when he was able to do that, he bought a house and sent his kids to college, who had better lives than he did, right? That was the American dream. And we lost the steel industry. And it was economically devastating for the households, the communities, the counties at that time. And to this day, we are still suffering. These big changes are coming our way. They will come our way. And we can embrace those opportunities. Now, let me give you a quick example of where America has gotten it right. We also had big challenges in the post-World War II era. And we set up the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, DARPA. DARPA incubated some of the biggest technology breakthroughs of our time. To this day, DARPA has fundamentally changed the way Americans live because we invested in that science and technology. We weren't afraid. We seized the future. And in this district, and just outside of this district, the Aberdeen Proving Ground tested some of those very technologies. How do we apply that here? We on the Eastern Shore and in the northern counties have access to some of the finest minds on the face of the earth. You used to work at APL.
Hmm.
We have APL, Johns Hopkins, the university itself, the University of Maryland, the Naval Academy, and a whole host of private sector entities that generate some of the biggest breakthrough technologies of our time. Imagine if we applied that same ingenuity to climate solutions, to the technology of the next decade, right? We could be the leaders in the entire world, and we can test those technologies here. And last point, let me explain how that affects everybody. So you can have big thinking engineers at the Applied Physics Lab at Johns Hopkins, but you can also have welders in Salisbury, right? We are going to put up wind turbines in America. Maybe we put them up in Maryland's First District. Maybe we put them up along the Eastern Seaboard. That requires deep sea maritime welding skills. Imagine if we provide the vocational training and the technology and the muscle to set up those turbines instead of relying on others. Not only would that create great jobs at home, but those welders could work all over the world and bring back that money and those resources to our district. And that could be our future. We just need people in Congress who understand economics, understand the technology changes that are coming our way, and can chart a big vision.
So you certainly play my heartstrings when you're talking about technology, because we could have a whole long separate conversation about technology, because the stuff I worked on and worked with at Hopkins, between the School of Medicine and APL, the stuff that gets shelved, it could make you cry, because you could look at how much good it could do for people, but there's nobody there to take it to the next level of development. And so I really loved what you said, Dave, about unlocking some of this technology. But I also want to pick up on towards the end of your answer when you spoke towards another key point of your campaign, which is unlocking talent on the Eastern Shore and within the First District. So, if you could expand a little bit upon that.
So, Bill, I'm guessing that most of the viewers are younger than me, but I'm here to tell you that
and me, I'm sure.
All right, I'm here to tell you that 50 plus years ago, Carroll County did not have public kindergarten. I had no option to go to public kindergarten in Carroll County. I didn't learn how to read until first grade. When I tell people that there was no kindergarten 50 plus years ago in Carroll County, it's shocking. They can't imagine. They can't imagine a county or a state that didn't have universal kindergarten. And now the world is completely different. Of course, we have kindergarten. But if we're going to compete in this global economy, if we're going to compete and win in this era of great power competition with China and Russia and Northern European states, we're going to have to educate all of our people. And that first begins by opening up universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds. That does a few things. That provides and drives talent to everybody earlier on. But it also allows families to unlock wealth. So if you have to send your kids to daycare, or you can send them to universal 3-year-old program where they can learn to begin to read, you're going to save your money and send them to preschool, right? And then with that money, you can save it for a mortgage for a house. You can start your own business. You can save it for college, for you or your spouse, or for your kids when their time comes. So universal pre-K opens up economic wealth for families and allows us to build a workforce that will be able to conquer the 21st century. On the post-high school era, end. Vocational training needs to be radically improved. We need to have the skills and the technology and the talent so that if you come out of high school and you go through a vocational training program, you can become a deep sea maritime welder. You can unlock the challenges of the new cars, not the combustion engine, but the new cars. You can build solar grids at the household or farm level, right? These are the opportunities for people who don't want to go to college. And let me tell you, if you ever hired an HVAC guy or a plumber recently, you know that those folks are creating good, strong businesses that allow them to provide a middle-class outcome for their family. But let's just expand upon that. Let's grow that. Let's deepen that. Lastly, broadband. Now, it is in the infrastructure bill, and I hope it goes out. But broadband is the infrastructure that is needed for rural counties in America. We have a history in America where we come together at times of crisis. And what do I mean? Abraham Lincoln, during the Civil War, connected America with the Transcontinental Railway. FDR, during the despair of the Depression, mandated that he would electrify every last house in America. Eisenhower, during the challenges of the Cold War, built the interstate highway system. Not only do we need broadband, but we need the next generation of connectivity, which could include low orbit satellite connectivity that goes faster and better into hard to reach places. So yeah, we need the infrastructure now to unlock America's hidden talent.
Dave, that's a great answer, and that's very much an answer that looks forward. And I can tell you, I mean, I like you. I wish I could vote for you. Perhaps in 5-10 years, when I move over to the shore, I will be able to vote for you. Or redistricting may bring you here. Who knows? But I love the authenticity in your answers, and I believe authenticity goes a long way. And so I guess my last question's a little bit hard for me to ask, because as you cited in one of your earlier responses, the current congressman, you didn't say the word, I will say the word, he's kind of a jerk. But yet he keeps getting reelected and reelected. As I'm sure you know, he has now violated his own term limit privilege, or pledge rather, and people really seem to like him. He got elected the last couple times with over 60% of the vote. So should you make it through the Democratic primary, what's your plan to bridge that blue-red divide and just get enough of the voters in the first district to wake up and realize that this person's not serving their interests?
Well, you raise a very good point, Bill. And let me tell you that the Democrats lose 90% of the rural counties in America. And why is that? Often they run people who aren't from those rural backgrounds, from those rural counties, who don't understand the culture, who don't speak the language, who don't share the values, who don't know the pain of rural communities. I do. This is where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what the volunteer fire department means, both when you're a 5-year-old and you're going to the carnival, or when they come racing down the farm driveway to save your mom and take her to shock trauma. I understand what rural counties care about and what they feel. And I understand that much more deeply than any of the candidates, including Andy Harris, for sure. I mean, he's from Brooklyn. So imagine that. But how do we win? So ultimately, the Democrats need to select a candidate, to nominate a candidate who is authentic, who understands the people, and who can build the coalition to take 35,000 votes away from Andy Harris and put it in my case, into my column. And so that means that the Democrat, or that I, have to win the Hogan Republicans, 5–10% of those who vote, the independents, which are a strong force in Maryland 1, and who tend to be center right, as well as the Democratic range. And so it will be important that we build that Biden coalition to embrace those who may not align completely with all of our values, but who want to see a better outcome for their kids. And I will just tell you this. I have built that coalition. I have had, of course, Bernie and Elizabeth Warren voters who donated to my campaign, and obviously the Biden folks. But I've also had Trump voters and Andy Harris voters who have donated to my campaign, And I will tell you that when I was in Rock Hall filming my launch video, where my great grandma Lillian Downey was born and raised, I was on the pier and a man got out of a boat, and that boat had a big Trump flag. And the man got out of the boat and he had a long gray beard. And he came up to me and he puffed out his chest and he said, "Hey, you running for Congress or something?" And I looked at him and I said, "Yes, I'm Dave Harden. I'm a Democrat. I'm running for Congress. And my great grandma, Lillian Downey, grew up right here. That street is named after her family." And this Trump supporter said to me, "Good, I'm voting for you." Andy Harris doesn't listen to us. He doesn't respect us. He doesn't value us, and he doesn't deliver for us. We need somebody who can do that. And then he said, "I'm going to do something even more. I'm going to call my friends, the Watermen, the leadership of the Watermen, and tell them who you are, because I think you need to meet them." And that's why I wrote my op-ed that you called me about,
Yes.
which was about cleaning up the Bay and making sure that we include the Watermen in the solution. So I can build the big tent coalition to defeat Andy Harris and to move those 35,000 votes from him to me, whether or not we're redistricted.
It was a great, I'm going to extend the interview a little bit, take a little host privilege. But for those of you who have not read the op-ed that Dave was just mentioning, I would really recommend it. Dave, I'm reading a book right now called Chesapeake Requiem about Tangier Island. And of course that's in Virginia, but the same issues are happening and going on the shore. And if there is a class of people on the shore who should be concerned about climate change and how we use our resources, it should be the Watermen and the entire aquaculture community. And the first district is so tied to the Bay. I mean, for this wonderful area, and I don't know if you saw the article about maybe turning the Bay into a national recreation area like the Golden Gate area in San Francisco, but to have such a congressman or congressperson represent the Chesapeake Bay, who just thumbs his nose at so much that could be good to help fix the Bay and help preserve the Bay. It's just one of the bigger non sequiturs I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent an enormous amount of time with the Watermen trying to understand their grievances. And these folks aren't classic Democratic voters. You know what?
Mm-hmm.
But they are people that have real needs, that care about their future and would like to see different outcomes. But here's the thing. It's not unusual that the locals are forgotten. The locals are cast aside, that their concerns are ignored. And you see that all over the world, in every conflict, in every crisis. And we don't need to do that. I would agree with you that those who could be the best stewards of the Bay, those who could be the champions of protecting the Bay for generations to come, are those who want to give the Bay businesses down to their kids and grandkids, right? They don't want to move and work at Walmart. They
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh.
prepares us for the shocks that are coming with climate change, etc. And let me make one last point. You know, most of the pollution from the Bay is from big metropolitan areas outside of this district, outside of Maryland. And
Mm-hmm.
these are essentially free riders in stark economic terms. They get to pollute for free, and then the local economy bears that cost. We need to change those economics. We need to realign that. And this is what I've done for 3 decades around the world. And this is what I would love to do as Maryland's representative for the First District in Congress.
Dave, this is terrific. As we wrap up, I would love to give you an opportunity to tell the listening or viewing public how they can help you and how they can get involved in your campaign.
Well, thank you, Bill, for that. So again, the website is www.harden, Harden, for Congress.com. And let's be clear, I'm going up against the Trump machine. I'm going up against QAnon. These guys have money and they have commitment. I am not afraid in the least of Andy Harris or the Trump machine. I am ready to take on that challenge. But if folks can donate to my campaign, that would help. 5, 10, 15 bucks, all of it matters. Secondly, I need to get out the word because I am not a career politician. I've only solved problems for America all around the world. I have not been back scratching other politicians, here there for generations or for decades. I have worked to make America stronger and better. I am going to work to make this district better, and I will need all the help I can get: financial, volunteers.
Uh-oh. We did not. Dave, this is in 166 episodes, this was a Forward Maryland first. We lost you towards the end of your answer.
Well, I'm not sure exactly where you lost me, but it's HardenForCongress.com. Sign up, donate, volunteer, help us defeat QAnon, the Trump machine, and Andy Harris.
Well, we lost you at where you mentioned volunteers. So I think that was towards the end, but I didn't know if you wanted to say anything after that.
We need all the volunteers we can get. We need to build a movement, which we are building right now, to take on and hold Andy Harris accountable. And you know what? To bring common sense back to the First District.
Maryland friends, I mean, we all talk about change that we can have happen at the ballot box. Maryland's blue, my vote for president, my activism for president's not going to matter. Here's a race where it's going to matter in the First Congressional District. So HardenForCongress.com, HARDEN, forcongress.com. So Dave, thank you for a terrific interview. I know we have about 11 months before the primary, so I hope you'll consider coming on again to let us know how it's going. And if you're successful, we're certainly looking forward to having you on as a host, as a guest in the general election.
Thank you, Bill. I will be, I'm putting it down now that I will see you in the general election.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. By the way, you're the first person I've ever spoken with who could remember kindergarten not being compulsory in the state of Maryland. I would have went in 71, 72, but I didn't go. Clearly to my detriment.
I'm not so sure about that.
So thank you again, and thank you out there in listener and or viewer land for tuning in virtually to another edition of Forward Maryland. My name is Bill Woodcock. We'll have another episode this weekend. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.